Welcome back, everyone, to another installment of Tim and Tom's Film Nights, where two elderly British gentlemen, myself, Timothy, and my dear friend Thomas, who's in the other side of the screen, sit down each week and have a long and in-depth discussion about our favorite movies.
Hello, everyone out there in YouTube land. I am Tom, and today we're discussing a real classic Western, one that has stood the test of time and still holds up to this day. What do you think, Timothy?
Well, now, hold on there a moment, young man. This ain't no simple Western movie we're talking about, is it? No, siree. We got ourselves a proper Italian spaghetti Western right here, don't we?
I see you've done your research, Tim. So what do you think of this classic? A masterpiece or just another Western flick?
Well, now, Thomas, I'll give you one thing. Leone sure knew how to craft a compelling story, didn't he? Three unlikely characters, all with their own agendas and motivations, all crossing paths in the harsh landscape of the American Southwest during the Civil War. But I must say, it took me quite a while to warm up to this one, Thomas. I usually prefer my Westerns to have a bit more heart and soul, don't you? You know, a good old-fashioned tale of redemption and friendship like Shane or The Searchers. But once I got into the rhythm of Leone's unique style, I found myself quite hooked.
But that's the beauty of this film, Timmy boy. It's not just another typical Western flick, is it? No, sirree, Leone took the genre and turned it upside down. Instead of focusing on the usual good versus evil tropes, he delves deep into the gray areas of morality, questioning the very notion of heroism itself. Take the title, for example, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Who is truly the good guy? The self-righteous sheriff who's more concerned with his own pockets than justice? Or perhaps it's the so-called bad guy who, despite his questionable methods, ultimately has a sense of honor and loyalty to those he considers his friends? And then there's the ugly, the morally ambiguous figure caught in between, played masterfully by the legendary Eli Wallach. So, Timothy, my dear friend, what do you think? Are you ready to saddle up and ride into the sunset with me as we discuss this cinematic masterpiece further?
I see you're quite eager to ride off into the sunset with your guns blazing, Thomas. Well, I must admit there are indeed some interesting behind-the-scenes tidbits about this classic film that fans like ourselves simply cannot resist discussing. For instance, did you know that the famous Man with No Name character, played so iconically by Clint Eastwood, was originally supposed to be played by none other than Steve McQueen? Can you imagine a world where McQueen would don those iconic poncho and hat combo instead of our beloved Eastwood? The very thought makes me shudder in disbelief. But perhaps the most intriguing tidbit I'd like to share with you today concerns the film's iconic score, composed by the legendary Ennio Morricone. You know, Thomas, it's said that the famous whistling theme was actually inspired by a 19th century tune called the Easy Riders song. Can you believe it? A simple folk melody from the past somehow managed to be twisted and turned into one of cinema history's most recognizable and iconic themes. It just goes to show how talented these artists truly were, eh? So, what do you think, Thomas? Do these tidbits pique your interest in any way? Are you ready to delve deeper into the dark and dusty corners of the making of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly with me?
Timothy, my dear friend, you always know how to stir up the pot, don't you? I must say these behind-the-scenes tidbits truly are fascinating and add a whole new layer of intrigue to this cinematic masterpiece. But alas, we have other matters to attend to today, don't we? We were discussing the differences between the original film and... what's the name of that modern remake again? Oh, yes, The Good, the Bad, and the ugly Riagdai on Isda, something equally asinine. I understand the temptation to remake a classic like this one, but honestly, Timothy, some things simply cannot be improved upon, right? Leone's masterpiece is a perfect example of that. The chemistry between Eastwood and Wallach, the stunning cinematography by the legendary Tuco Ramirez. I mean, Tuco Arapa, something or other. And of course that iconic score by Morrison. It's simply perfection, isn't it? But enough of my rambling. Let's talk about the new version, shall we? What did you think of the modern take on this timeless classic, Timothy? Do you believe they managed to capture any of the original's magic? Or was it just another cash-grabbing attempt by greedy Hollywood execs?
Ah, Tom, dear boy, I can never resist a good debate. And I must say, you bring up some valid points there. Leone's film is indeed a masterpiece that's hard to surpass, but let's not forget that cinema, like life itself, is ever evolving. So while the original will always hold a special place in our hearts, I can appreciate the attempt by those young whippersnappers to put their own spin on this classic tale. Now, as for the new version, you speak of the good, the bad, and the ugly, ionized or whatever they decided to call it. I'll give them credit where credit is due. They managed to gather a talented cast, including the always charismatic Chuck Norris as the unforgettable Tuco Ramirez. Excuse me, Tuco Arapa, something or other. And while they certainly upped the ante when it comes to action and special effects, I must admit they lost a bit of the original's charm and subtlety along the way. But hey, what do you think, Thomas? Did they manage to recapture any of the magic that made Leone's film so iconic? Or should they have left this one in the dusty pages of cinema history where it belongs?
Well, Timothy, my dear chap, I must confess that while, whatever it is, does sound like a bit of a stretch, I can appreciate the attempt to modernize the story and appeal to a newer generation. As for capturing the magic of Leone's masterpiece, that's always going to be a tall order. Wouldn't you agree? But hey, cinema is meant to be enjoyed, right? Even if it means revisiting old favorites with fresh eyes or taking a chance on a modern reimagining. So, while I won't go as far as calling the good, the bad, and the ugly, ionized a cinematic masterpiece, it did provide some moments of entertainment, didn't it? Now, let's shift gears and talk about the original cast for a moment. Clint Eastwood as the good Lee Van Cleef as the bad, and Eli Wallach as the ugly. These three iconic actors brought these characters to life in ways that have become etched into cinematic history. But can't help but wonder what Steve McQueen would brought to the table as the good. What about you, Timothy? Any other actors who caught your eye for these iconic roles?
Oh, Tom, dear boy, you know how much I love a good gossip. So let's dish out some juicy behind-the-scenes tidbits regarding the casting of these iconic characters. As we mentioned earlier, Steve McQueen was indeed the first choice for the good role before Eastwood nabbed it. But did you know that Clint himself initially turned down the offer? Can you imagine? No. Let me finish. So legend has it that director Sergio Leone, ever the persuasive one, flew to the United States and literally cornered Eastwood at a Los Angeles airport. The rest, as they say, is cinematic history. As for Lee Van Cleef's the bad role, he reportedly had some stiff competition from none other than the legendary Kirk Douglas. Can you imagine? But alas, it was Van Cleef who ultimately donned those iconic black boots and brought the character of Angel Eyes to life. Now let's talk about Eli Wallach, the ugly role. The legendary actor initially auditioned for the part of Tuco Ramirez, but Leone apparently felt he was too old for the role. Can you imagine? So they created a new character specifically tailored to Wallach's talents, and Tuco Arapa, whatever, was born. And boy, did he deliver. So, Thomas, what do you think about these casting choices? Do you agree with the final choices, or are there any other actors who would made for better fits, in your opinion?
Well, now, Timothy, dear chap, the heart of the matter, the cultural impact of the good, the bad, and the ugly. This film has left an indelible mark on cinema not just in terms of the spaghetti western genre, but also as a whole. Leone's masterful direction, Ennio Morricone's iconic score, and the unforgettable performances by Eastwood, Van Cleef, and Wallach have all become pop culture staples. From Tuco's famous Yee Ha 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 to the iconic Man with No Name character played by Eastwood, this film has left a lasting impression on generations of viewers worldwide. But it's not just its influence on cinema that stands out. It also tackles themes of morality, loyalty, and greed, all timeless topics that continue to resonate with audiences today. What do you think, Tim? How would you describe the cultural impact of the good, the bad, and the ugly? Do you think it's still relevant in today's fast-paced world, filled with CG-heavy blockbusters and superhero flicks?
Well, Tom, I, for one, am a staunch believer in the timelessness of classic cinema, and the good, the bad, and the ugly certainly falls into that category. It's a film that transcends generations and continues to resonate with audiences worldwide. The themes it explores, greed, betrayal, loyalty, morality, are universal human experiences that will always resonate, and the iconic characters, memorable lines, and breathtaking landscapes, all of these elements have become part of pop culture vernacular. As for its relevance in today's world filled with CG-heavy blockbusters and superhero flicks, I say it's more relevant than ever. We live in a time where greed and selfishness seem to be the order of the day, where loyalty and honor are often treated lightly. The good, the bad, and the ugly reminds us of the importance of choosing our allies wisely and understanding that actions have consequences. So, Tom, my dear chap, in conclusion, I'd say that the good, the bad, and the ugly is not just a classic Western flick. It's a timeless masterpiece that speaks to the very essence of human nature itself. Now, before we wrap up our lovely chat for today, I would be remiss if I didn't mention our plea for you lovely viewers out there to join in on the conversation. Comment below, tell us your thoughts on the good, the bad, and the ugly. What did you love? What did you hate? And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more film nights filled with debate, disagreement, and perhaps a dash of camaraderie between the old Englishman and his American friend. Until next time, cheers